Today on the BattleCry, we're going to cover the whole world, literally Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, everything that's going on, how it's reshaping global politics. We're also going to cover right here at home, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and why this is a pivot point for America. You don't want to miss it. Happy Sunday night, everybody. It's the BattleCry. I'm back with you. Of course, I'm Mark Meckler, your host for the BattleCry, president of Convention Estates. And as always, I'm excited to be with you, mainly because I just like being with you guys. I get the best feedback I can possibly get here from you guys on the BattleCry. And I love that give and take. At the end, of course, we'll have the Ask Mark section, which is always my favorite section. But first, as you know, we always start with a call to action because we are about action. We're not just about complaining. In fact, we don't complain very much. We're not about just telling you the news because you can get your news anywhere. But one of the things we want to do is give you action items that you can actually do to be engaged. And I think this is important. It's not enough to just watch. It's not enough to just be informed. You have to be engaged. So this week, it's pretty simple, I think. I'm asking you, if you're online, which clearly you are, that you need to be not just online, but you need to be engaged and you need to be doing something positive this week. And that is supporting ICE. They're out there doing some of the hardest work in America. It's what so many of us voted for, which is get the illegals out of our country, starting specifically with the worst of the worst, the most dangerous, the rapists, the pedophiles, the murderers, the arsonists, the burglars, the thieves, the DUIs. Get them out of our country. That's what these guys are doing. And they're getting attacked for it. And the president is getting attacked for it. And there's a bunch of leftist noise online about it. And you need to counter that noise. So I encourage you, whether it's on Facebook or X or on Instagram or wherever you happen to be on TikTok, you should get out there and you should be pro-ICE. Don't let the anti-ICE nincompoops out-volume us. We need to be out there. We need to be smart, sophisticated, of course, always loving and compassionate. But we need to be involved. Get online, support the president, and support what ICE is doing right away. All right, let's go from ICE, which is obviously a national and sometimes a local issue, to the broader issues in the world right now. Let's start with Iran. What is going on in Iran? Last week at this time, I would have predicted by this week at this time that the United States would have begun striking Iran. They would have begun striking the IRGC headquarters, the pain points for IRGC, destroying the ballistic missile supply in Iran. That's what I thought was going to happen. Often when I predict the future, I'm wrong. My crystal ball is not that good, so I want to openly admit that's what I was predicting last week. That is not what happened. What happened instead is it looked like we got right to the brink of attacking. In fact, last weekend, it looked like we were going to attack. Over the last few days, maybe it even looked like we were going to attack, and then we pulled back. So it's really interesting that tankers that were evacuated or were out all went back to their air bases. Everybody kind of stood down a little bit. Iran says they're not going to be executing prisoners in the streets. Israel came off as high of alert as it was on. What happened? Did President Trump chicken out? He just decided at the last minute he wasn't willing to do it? That's not what I think happened. My best read of the situation, this is not unique to me. I want to be honest about that. I read a lot of different sources. My best read is that this was part of psychological warfare. Number one, the more times that you push your enemies to the brink and don't actually attack, the more fatigued they are. Can you imagine over and over you believe you're going to be attacked, over and over you believe you're going to be hit, and they've seen what it looks like when the U.S. or when Israel hits, and they're on edge, on edge, on edge all the time. Imagine the level of exhaustion and frustration that kicks in. So I think that's part of what's going on. Second is when we came right to the brink, I don't know if you saw, but they closed Iranian airspace. That means they thought this whole thing was going down. They want to know, are there military aircraft making incursions into their airspace? They do that by shutting all of the airspace, waiting to see if anything comes in. Then they know what to shoot at. Nothing came in. And we didn't do anything, theoretically. And so what is that all about? Look, I think that is a spy operation, essentially more psyops. In other words, if you push your enemy right to the very brink, if you make them think you are about to attack, to the extent that they close their airspace, that means everything else that they're doing to be ready for your attack, 100% of what they're doing is now exposed, right? You get to see what radar fires up. Where's the radar? You get to see missile batteries move. You get to see jets scrambling. You get to see every bit of that. What do they do when they believe it's all about to come down? And your intel, your military intel, all of your military vision, your satellites, watch all that. Now you know exactly what they're going to do. Now you know when you actually do decide to press the button and make the attack and say go, you know exactly what they're going to do. Why do we know? Because they don't have time to change it. If we attack any time in the near future, they had all these plans, all these contingency plans, the vast majority of them now exposed. And this is really important if you want to catch your enemy and you want to know exactly what they're about to do. So that's my best read on what was going on. This was a psyop. This was a chance to exhaust your enemy, but also to make them expose all of their plans. What do they intend to do if you actually attack? And I actually think that's genius. Now, I think this is really important that we do something. I don't know exactly what we should do. I don't claim to be an international relations expert. I don't claim to be a military expert. I'm just a guy with some opinions who happens to read a lot. That's about it. So take my opinions for what they're worth. Take them for exactly what you pay for them, which is zero. I'm not saying they're worth any more than anybody else. It's just my opinion. I think what's going on now is we're trying to decide what to do next. The best thing that we could do, in my opinion, is the mullahs leave and we never fire a shot. That is the best form of international soft power, right? Look, we'll switch to Venezuela. We'll talk about that and how that relates. But right now in Iran, if the mullahs pack up and leave, go to Russia, go to wherever they're going to go, and that regime is overthrown without the U.S. ever firing a shot, that is the most power flex move we could possibly do. And I think that is potentially what they're trying to see if they can get done. Get the mullahs out of there. We know that the mullahs are loading up their suitcases. Literally, we know this. We know that some of them have already flown out of the country. We know the pressure on them is intense. We know the leadership is fracturing. We know Khomeini is out in a bunker in the desert somewhere. And so if we can get them to crack and to leave without ever firing a shot, that's the best kind of war fighting there is. Nobody gets killed. We don't put anybody at risk. Now, the Iranian people are getting killed. And that's horrifying and it's tragic. We can only let that happen for so long before we actually do something, in my opinion. I think we need to do something. Right now, I think Trump is doing the thing that is the very best for the United States of America, which is try to get a non-military regime change to happen in Iran. And by the way, the Iranians will be forever grateful to the United States of America. President Trump has stood up. He said he won't tolerate this. He's pushed back against the mullahs. He's encouraged the protesters. It's all important stuff. That's the exact opposite of what Obama did the last time there was a revolt in Iran. He stood down. He negotiated with the mullahs. That's where the JCPOA comes out of. He was garbage. He was international garbage. He was a disaster for the Iranian people. He kept them under the heavy fist of the mullahocracy, the theocracy there for many more years because of what Obama did. Many have lived under tyranny because of Obama. President Trump is not going to allow that to happen on his watch. That's my belief. Iran is important in the world scheme of things because they have so much oil and because they are the main exporter in the entire world of terrorism. They are the lever that China uses and Russia uses to get under our skin to do things that are very anti-American. The Iranians are willing to do that stuff. They take the money to do that stuff. And so that would really help. Also, Iranian oil does go to China. It's not a major percentage. As I understand, it's about 4% of Chinese oil. I'm sorry, if Iranian oil goes to China, it's about, 4% of the total Chinese use of oil. Significant, but not crippling by any means. It's a particular kind of oil. It's a particular kind of dense, heavy crude. Certain refineries only can do it. It's good for certain things. So that supply would dry up for them. That would be a very good thing. They would quit importing terrorism. That would be an incredible thing. The Middle East would stabilize. That would be an amazing, historic thing. And we would have much less risk in the world, including here at home, from radical Islam if Iran changed from the theocracy to a pro-Western nation. And I think that's in the works. I think that's going to happen on President Trump's watch. I think it's going to happen soon. I'm not going to say this week. I have no idea. Obviously, my prediction last week was wrong, but I do believe that's going to happen. Second on the slate is Venezuela. I think people aren't paying as much attention to Venezuela because Iran has gone hot. That's really lit up. Maduro's out. It seems like, is anything else really happening? I don't know. People say they don't know. Like, here's what's happening. I can tell you today, Just the News reported, some of you know that I'm now the CEO of Just the News. Just the News, John Solomon reported that there were high-level meetings in Venezuela with Delcy Rodriguez, who is now the president. Now that Maduro has been extradited to the United States, Delcy Rodriguez is the president. Those meetings took place. Delcy Rodriguez shows up to our delegation, and she shows up in a lime green pantsuit, trying to promote her crazy socialism. It was very insulting. But in any event, we have control of Venezuelan oil now. Like, we control that oil. It's being pumped. It's being sold. You know who's selling it? We're selling it. The United States is selling it. You know how that money will be used? However we want to use it. It's a really interesting fact, little known, little paid attention to. That money is not coming into the U.S. And the reason it's not coming into the U.S. is there are people in countries that have judgments against Venezuela who could seize that money. Donald Trump wants that money used for the right things. And so that money is actually going into an intermediate account overseas in Qatar. And I know I'm no fan of the Qataris. I don't like the Qataris. The Qataris are evil, in my opinion. But the Qataris love money more than they love anything else. I don't believe they're even Muslim. Their God is money. They do where they think they can make money. And so that money's been parked in accounts there, and it's being divvied out by Trump to Venezuela to allow their country to operate, but also being used for U.S. purposes. This is true America First policy. I want to pay attention to this. Two regimes being upended, turning from anti-American, hopefully, to pro-American, with no American loss of life, with no American boots on the ground. Actually, generally speaking, with no American military intervention. Minor intervention to grab Maduro. Not that many people involved, not some big thousands of troops involved. We grab Maduro, we're out. And now the United States is meeting with Delcy Rodriguez to set the terms. You will do X, Y, and Z, or you're next. And she has to know that's real. If we could get Maduro, obviously we could get Delcy Rodriguez. And so she is going to play ball. She's already playing ball on the oil. There are political prisoners that have already been released. More are slated to be released. I think you're going to slowly see the freeing of Venezuela. And this is important. You could do it fast. You could do it overnight. Military action, create chaos. You don't want chaos in a country. I mean, I know we want the people to be free, and I think that's incredible, but we've seen what happens when we just try to overturn a dictatorship. And what follows is often worse. And I think that's what Trump's trying to avoid. And I think he's being very smart about it. Venezuela, also important in the scheme of the world. Venezuelan oil goes to China, just like Iraqi oil goes to China. So we're cutting off more of their supply. Venezuelan oil also goes to Cuba. We're going to talk more about Cuba when we finish with Venezuela. Venezuela has always been has recently, in the last 10 years, 15 years, been a launching pad for Chinese operations, Russian operations, Iranian operations, Hezbollah, Hamas, all operating out of Venezuela. In Venezuela and in Iraq, they've been building, my understanding is they've been building drones for Russia to use in their conflict against Ukraine. So taking Venezuela and controlling Venezuela and starting to throttle down on that stuff in Venezuela, what's that do? It hurts both China and Russia, our geopolitical adversaries, and it cuts off the oil supply. And so that's better for the U.S. That's America First policy. Again, no boots on the ground. Third, we're going to talk about Cuba. Cuba, 90 miles off our shore. Cuba, where there are at least 3 Russian military bases. There are Chinese military there, and they use those bases to spy on the United States of America, to spy on sensitive military installations in America, to be right there in our hemisphere, 90 miles off our shore. And Trump says, rightly so, that can't stand. We have to fix that. Venezuela provided 80% of the oil for Cuba. That oil, now cut off. Cuba was already having massive energy problems. They're having problems producing enough electricity for their population, 3-4 day blackouts, rolling blackouts around the country. It's now much, much worse. And I can guarantee you that government is being offered a similar deal as Delcy Rodriguez. Kick out the Russians, kick out the Chinese, take a more American posture, a more American stance, America first, especially in our own hemisphere, and things get better for you. And we'll make sure you get the oil that you need. And the lights might come back on. And we start to open up trade with you. This is the gradual transition without boots on the ground, without firing a shot. I think what you're going to see over the next several months is you're going to see Iran, Venezuela, and China all open up to America. It's going to be the most extraordinary geopolitical realignment in our lifetimes, in the lifetimes of anybody alive today. Is going to be absolutely extraordinary. I think that's what's going on. I'm going to tell you, be patient. This is really important that we're patient about this stuff, because what we don't want is we don't want an overnight revolution. We don't want those places blowing up and breaking down into total chaos and riots in the streets. And you never know who ends up in control. That would be the really bad scenario, right? And so what we want is we want sort of a slow roll to this. And I realize to the people of Cuba, the people of Venezuela, the people of Iran, that's difficult for you. And God bless you. And I thank you for your bravery, for being on the streets, for what you're willing to do, for being in the fight. There are martyrs being made every day for the cause, and I understand that, and I sympathize with that, and I feel terrible about that. But I do believe this is the best way for this to unfold, not just for America, yes, for America first, because that's what I care about first, but I also think for the people on the ground in those countries. All right, one more international thing before we go to the home front. That international thing is Minneapolis. Minneapolis is a mess. You guys know about the shooting, the justifiable homicide of Renee Good, who it appears to me was actually did hit an officer. He had internal bleeding. He had injuries, had to go to the hospital, hit him. He shot her in justifiable self-defense. So justifiable homicide. Obviously, riots broke out after that. Federal cars being burned, attacked, FBI officers being attacked, guns being stolen out of their cars. It's chaos on the streets in Minneapolis. It's bad. And by the way, I want to clarify something. When I say there's chaos on the streets in Minneapolis, I have friends who live in Minneapolis. It's not everywhere. I just want to be really clear about that. For most of the city, there's nothing going on. It's just normal life, right? I have a friend I was communicating with yesterday, and we're texting back and forth. And honestly, he's way more sympathetic to Minneapolis than he is to ICE, and I don't really love that. But we had a good, productive exchange. And he told me, like, it's not going on in his neighborhood or in most neighborhoods. And he actually posted a picture of his kids out playing in the snow, said something like, this is what I love about Minneapolis. So I want you to have the proper perspective. This is not going on everywhere. The whole city's not burning. It's in limited areas, but it's really bad where it is, okay? And the debate that he and I were sort of having in a very friendly manner was, if you don't want this kind of stuff happening in your city, if you don't want ICE conducting these on the street raids, get your law enforcement to cooperate with ICE. It's really that simple. If you look at all the cities where law enforcement is cooperating, where the jails are cooperating, be they county or city jails, state prisons, where they're cooperating and they're honoring ICE detainers and they're turning over violent pedophiles, rapists, murderers, illegal immigrants, where they turn them over once they're in custody, they turn them over to the federal government based on ICE detainers. You're not seeing any of this stuff. So is Minneapolis being targeted? This is what my friend said. It feels like Minneapolis is being targeted. Yeah, absolutely. It's being targeted. It's being targeted because you have a lot of these people in your city. And I said to him, you should not want that for your kids and your wife who are out and about your city. Murderers, rapists, pedophiles, thieves, fraudsters, burglars, carjackers. These are illegal aliens that have committed these crimes. They're on your streets because your jails won't turn them over to ICE. And so, one, we need to fix that. Like, those cities just need to start cooperating. They're not required to, by the way. I want to be really clear. They can't be required to. States cannot be required to cooperate with the federal government and federal law enforcement. And I think that's correct. That's constitutionally correct. But they should do it. And if they don't want the chaos, They really should do it, but I think they actually want the chaos. So now the question becomes, what do we do? We actually have the chaos. My opinion of what we should do is I do believe President Trump should invoke the Insurrection Act. He should put as many troops and whatever federal law enforcement he needs in Minneapolis to restore order and to help ICE do their job. And she should go in there and she should stop the violence. That's what he ought to do. And that's got to be the example that he sets so that all these other blue states and blue cities don't start doing the same stuff, because that is just an absolute disaster waiting to happen. It's actually civil war waiting to happen. You cannot have states that allow their citizens, they may not be doing it, but that allow their citizens to impede federal law enforcement. And when you listen to Mayor Jacob Frey or you listen to Tim Walz, they're actually in coded language encouraging their citizens to impede federal law enforcement. They won't say those words because they know that's illegal, but they come as close as you can. People know exactly what they mean. And people are putting themselves in between federal law enforcement and the job federal law enforcement has to do. That's a crime. It's dangerous. People are going to get killed. We need to stop it. If we want to preserve the country, we've got to stop that kind of stuff. This is the time for the Insurrection Act. It's not unprecedented. It's not unheard of. It's been done a lot of times in our history. I think it's appropriate at this point. That's how we stop it. All right, last week in COS, I watched the debate on the floor of the Delaware House about Convention of States resolution. It was amazing. First thing that was amazing is they provided no notice that they were going to hold this debate. Why? Because they don't want citizens to participate, right? Because they don't care about representation. They didn't want anybody to know this was going on. They didn't want citizens there in the legislature. They didn't want getting calls and emails and letters about why we should pass the Convention of States resolution. That is tyranny. Unbelievable that it's taking place in the Northeast, the birthplace of this nation. But most of the Northeast is off the reservation at this point as far as freedom and liberty and respecting representative government. So they did it without any notice. We found out first thing in the morning. We were totally blown away. I got to say, I'm so proud of the Delaware team and the relationship they built with legislators. So there's 21 members of the Delaware House. It got very heated. Our legislators who are on our side, who are really in the minority there, they were accused of all kinds of horrible, sordid stuff, lots of ad hominem attacks, just personality-based attacks. It was terrible. And then when they responded, when they presented their case, they did it articulately, kindly. And if they even so much as mentioned the people who attacked them, then the leadership shut them down hard and absolutely, saying they were making ad hominem attacks. I mean, it was just outrageous and biased. Now, good news is, bad news is, I would say we didn't pass. The good news is the vote was 7-7-7. That's a weird vote, right? Lucky sevens, maybe. 7 people voted for the resolution. That's one better than last year. We picked up a Democrat vote. 7 voted against, and 7 chose not to vote. They abstained from voting. The rule in Delaware, majority is calculated differently in different places. The rule in Delaware is you need the majority of actual senators elected, 21. Obviously, we need 11 senators. We're 4 votes away from passing. I don't think that's bad. It's 1 vote better than last year. I think the team was excited. They did a great job. Delaware, I am super proud of you guys. Next week in COS, I'm going to be off to Kansas. So Tuesday, Wednesday, I'll be in the Kansas Capitol. I'll be there lobbying with grassroots, hanging out with grassroots, meeting with them. I'm super excited because I think Kansas is close to passing. We've already passed the Senate in Kansas by a super majority. Now we only need to pass the House by a simple majority because there was litigation by a couple of members of the Kansas legislature, and the district court said, yeah, you can't require a super majority. That's unconstitutional. So that part of their constitution got struck down in court. Beautiful. So now we only need a simple majority. So God willing, I'm pretty sure we're going to pass. I don't know exactly what day the hearing is going to be. Maybe it'll happen while I'm there. That would be super cool. I'm going to go there. I'm going to support the Kansas team. I'm going to meet with a bunch of legislators. Maybe we get it done next week. Maybe it's in the next few weeks. We don't know exactly. We might know by Monday because we look at the calendar every week on Mondays to see what's going to be on the floor. But I'm excited to be there in Kansas. If you're anywhere in the Kansas area, come hang out with us. We're going to have some fun. I think we're going to do a dinner after the legislative session. but I'm excited to be there. I love the Heartland. That is where America's heartbeat is. I love being in those places. All right, we're going to go to Q&A, the Ask Mark section. But before we do that, I've got some reminders for you guys. First of all, on January 23rd, the Convention of States is going to air the premiere of a short film from our staff writer, Jake Fay. Now, I haven't even seen this film. I'm about to watch it. I just got a link. It's a 30-minute investigation into the national debt. The people who've seen it have told me it's unbelievable, that he's done an incredible job. You're going to learn the history of the government debt in America. Check this out. I want you guys to see the trailer. This is my first chance to see the trailer.
The fact is, both parties have laid a trap for future generations.
There's no way to solve the debt crisis.
We've all heard of the national debts. Politicians talk about it all the time. But I wanted to know, where does it come from? And how on earth are we supposed to explain $38 trillion in national debts? I'm diving in deep. We're going back to the early days of the Republic, but we're not stopping there. From Andrew Jackson to John Maynard Keynes, FDR to Ronald Reagan, I want to discover the origins of our nation's debts and arm you with the facts to explain this monstrosity of a number. The alarm bells have reached a fever pitch. Every day, we inch closer to collapse. Someone is robbing your kids, and you deserve to know something about it.
All right, so you can tune in for the story of the national debt, January 23rd, 8 p.m. Eastern on Convention of States on our Rumble channel, our YouTube channel. You'll definitely learn something. And before we go to questions, remember to like this video, hit subscribe, ring the notification bell, go ahead and yell out your window. I don't know, whatever you got to do to let your neighbors and everybody you know to watch the BattleCry every Sunday night. Don't forget to sign our open letter to Trump, conventionofstates.com/Trump. The president has expressed his initial support for Convention of States. So we're looking for a lot more. So go to conventionofstates.com/Trump. And if you want to be a person who gets to ask me a question, feel free to ask me a question. You can do that by going to conventionofstates.com/askmark. First question comes from David Combs. Would American jurisprudence and the rights of the people benefit from return to Bovier's Law Dictionary and Maxims? All right. I'm a lawyer. I'm a constitutional geek. I know who Bouvier is, John Bouvier. I wouldn't expect most people to know that. David, are you a lawyer? How do you know this? This is such an obscure thing. My answer would be yes, American jurisprudence and the rights of the people would benefit from a return to Bovier's Law Dictionary and Maxim. John Bouvier was a lawyer, immigrated to the United States, believed in America, and didn't like the previous law dictionaries because they relied upon English law, English jurisprudence, and he felt like they didn't reflect the American experience. So in the mid-1800s, just before the mid-1800s, he wrote Bouvier's Law Dictionary and Maxims. It's been revised a whole bunch of times. It lays out the principles of American jurisprudence. And I think you'd find it fascinating. I think it's a 2-volume series. I don't have it physically. I should probably buy one because it's so cool. But I think you might find it interesting. So look up Bouvier, Bouvier, Bouvier's Law Dictionary and Maxims. David, you are clearly qualified. I think you are a constitutional geek. I don't know what else to say. I mean that in the fondest sense. Brett Colbis says many veterans feel a continued call to serve after leaving the military. How do you see the Convention of States effort providing a meaningful new mission for these veterans? What are the most effective ways you've seen them plugged into leadership roles within COS so far? Brett is one of the great leaders of our Veterans Coalition, so it's kind of a planted question there, Brett. Come on, I know who you are. And the answer is, yeah, I think veterans have a critical role to play. There are over 300,000 self-identified veterans in the Convention of States Army. That's an incredible number. I want you to think about that. 300,000 men and women who've served our country in uniform are part of Convention of States. Why? I'll tell you why, because I hear it from them all the time. They say that when I took that oath, it didn't expire when I left the military. It never expires. So they took an oath to defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. If you're not in the military, never been in the military, you might not know that. I found that out when my son got sworn into the Marine Corps. I was pretty surprised by that oath. Defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And we have a lot of domestic enemies of the Constitution right now. What Convention of States is all about is about defending our Constitution against all enemies domestic, maybe even some foreign with the imposition of foreign law, them trying to impose foreign law in the United States, but certainly domestic enemies, people who don't believe in the original meaning of the Constitution, want to change the meaning of that Constitution through quote unquote living Constitution interpretation. These people are dangerous to the Republic. They're dangerous to the continuation of the United States of America as you and I know and love it. And veterans who have committed themselves heart, soul, and body to that fight can continue that fight to defend the Constitution of the United States of America by signing up for Convention of States and volunteering. And one of the things that I find is that people who've been in the military make great Convention of States leaders. Why? Well, because they've already proven themselves in leadership. They've been trained in leadership, especially when you see people who've moved themselves up in the ranks. They understand how to lead people into battle. And we are definitely leading people into battle. So we have lots of people in this organization, all across the organization, from all different ranks in the military that have done incredibly well helping to lead our Convention of States teams. They're organized. They understand how to get men and women on point and doing the right thing and saying the right thing at the right time. Critical skills for being in the military and different skill sets out of the military, just like anywhere else, right? Like I love logistics people and they make our events happen so smoothly. I've been in the Capitol and we've got an event that's running really well. All the packets are in place. Everybody knows where they're supposed to go. There are spreadsheets for everything. Very often I'll like, who organized all this stuff? It's incredible. Oh, it's so-and-so. Oh, what did you do? What's your career in life? Oh, I was in the military. What were you? Oh, I was a logistics officer. Okay, I get it. You had to make sure everything was where it was supposed to be, when it was supposed to be there. You had to do all the paperwork. You had to have all the forms filled out. You had to have all your timelines planned. Makes perfect sense. So I think there are a lot of skill sets that people learn in the military and perfect in the military that can transition to Convention of States. Battle plans, people who had to drop real actual battlefield plans. I find colonels are especially good at this. We've had some incredible sponsors who are colonels, especially in the U.S. Army. They know how to move men, move troops, move assets on a battlefield. So they know how to make a plan. They look at the Convention of States layout in a particular state. We got to get that legislator. We got to get this group over here. We got to get them in this timing, this sequence, and they can build out a great battle plan and execute on it. So I find that if you were in the military, you like being in the military, especially if you had a career in the military, you want to continue to serve in that way, Convention of States is honestly one of the best things that you can possibly do to know that you're still fighting for your country. Again, I'm going to do what I always do, which is I'm going to close with the battle cry with what I want you doing right now. I want you to get out there, get online in whatever way you do it, whether it's Facebook, X, Twitter, Instagram, I don't know what, hee-haw, whatever yours is, TikTok. I know there's not a hee-haw. You don't have to write to me. Whatever it is, go on your favorite social media, go on multiple, support ICE, support what the president's doing with ICE, and let's continue winning in 2026. It's going to be a great year. I'm going to pass a lot of states in Convention of States, and I intend to give you guys all the credit you deserve. God bless you guys. We'll see you next week on the BattleCry.